This is the official podcast of the 122nd Fighter Wing. Views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of the 122nd Fighter Wing, Air National Guard, or United States government. No endorsement of any person or business is ever intended.
Jedi, good hit.
Welcome back to another Blacksnake Bytes podcast. Your host today, Senior Master Sergeant Leslie Kaiser, First Sergeant of the Maintenance Squadron. And with us on air today, the First Sergeant Diamond family, or shirts as we like to say. So team, this is my team. I'm super excited to do this interview with you guys today. So just wanted to go around the table and introduce yourselves.
Hey, Senior Master Sergeant John Coughlin, happy to be here. Married 10 years to the absolute best spouse on the planet. Together we're raising two sons and a beautiful daughter that is doing a great job of keeping us on our toes at the moment. Militarily, I enlisted in the 181st Fighter Wing in the March of 2001. I wanted to do something that I would never be able to do anywhere else. So weapons loading was the ticket. I actually graduated BMT on September 9th of 2001. And September 11th was my first day to report back to base. And when I got there, it was on. And it was so awesome to be there to experience the response. From there, I went to college, deployed a couple of times, and then came the BRAC. The base was realigned to an intelligence wing that we know it today. And I elected to transfer to the 122nd Fighter Wing so I could concentrate on my civilian career. Deployed a couple of more times with weapons, had the time of my life, doing an awesome job. In 2018, I was accepted to fill a first sergeant billet, and I've been doing that ever since.
Well, my name is Evan Smith. I am AMX's new first sergeant here at the 122nd. I've been in for about 10 years. I've been sitting in this position for about a year now. Started in LRS, Logistics Readiness Squadron, and I was part of the Traffic Management Office. So long story short, anything that comes into the base and leaves the base, that pretty much was what I did in the Traffic Management Office. A little about myself. I have a lovely wife, coming up on 5 years here. No kids yet, but we have a giant Maine Coon cat. So to all the Harry Potter fans out there, if you watch Harry Potter and you know what a Maine Coon cat is, so it's a really big cat.
Master Sergeant Brian Jennings here. I started out my military experience in 1988. I'm actually a retread from the Army. So I started out active duty Army and was a airborne artilleryman for my first two enlistments. Got out when I ETS from the Army and used my GI Bill benefits and went to college and finished my college degree and heard about the Air Guard at that time, and eventually I came to my senses and got enlisted. And since I've been enlisted, I was a jet engine mechanic and was approached about being a first sergeant. And the second time I was approached about being a first sergeant, I was like, maybe this is be a good fit for me. I'm very interested in that. Became the Mission Support Group first sergeant in 2018, and great time being a first sergeant. I love my job. Been overseas 6 times. So I've had some great experiences, and I've basically deployed every 3 years of my military career. Glad to be here. And
Wow. The time between all of us, not only being a diamond, but just being in the military in general is impressive. Thank you so much for your time today and for joining us on the podcast. So where do shirts come from? Like, what's our history? What's our legacy?
The roots of the first sergeant go all the way back to 1775. A Prussian military officer was involved in several European conflicts in the mid-1700s. He came through Benjamin Franklin, who was the ambassador to France at the time. So he came to advise and assist General Washington during the American Revolution. Long story short, he ended up posted at Valley Forge. There were 12,000 soldiers there. The camp was in complete disarray, and there was none of the order that you would expect in a professional military organization. And the troops were essentially militia that had little to no formal training. He worked to organize and train a select group of the most senior non-commissioned officers into an organized unit. They standardized the size of a step, the cadence of a march, or a quick step. They made standards for what every single person was supposed to do whenever they initiated a maneuver like left flank, right face, that type of thing. Proficiency in reloading their muskets. That team of NCOs, after they were trained, were then dispersed among the rest of the regiments and charged with training the rest of the men to that standard. The Baron was named the Inspector General, and a lot of his work is still recognized and influencing our methods today. First Sergeant at that time was simply the senior enlisted sergeant in the company, as there were only, I believe, 3 sergeants authorized per company. So it kind of went by seniority. And that's where the moniker top came from. The term first shirt goes a little bit farther than that. West, in protecting the frontier, supplies and replacement uniforms and things like that were scarce, not always of the best quality. It became the first sergeant's job to inspect the new uniforms when they came in. And once he finished his inspection and accepted the supplies on behalf of his men, he was awarded the first shirt. Beyond that, the diamond device came into existence in 1847 in the Continental Army, and that's where we begin the modernization.
With all that history, a creed came about. I am a first sergeant. My job is people. Everyone is my business. I dedicate my time and energy to their needs, their health, morale, discipline, and welfare. I grow in strength by strengthening my people. My job is done in faith. My people build my faith. The Air Force is my life. I share it with my people. I believe in the Air Force goal. We take care of our own. My job is people. Everyone is my business. I mean, guys, listening to our legacy, our heritage, and how this has all come into play, that's a tall order to live by. I don't know about you guys, but I got some goosebumps just rereading that. Sergeant Smith, can you personally describe what the creed means to you when you hear that again?
What that means to me is, like you said, it gives me goosebumps. Our people is business, and honestly, that's the bottom line. It's quite simple, but at the same time, it's very difficult. What I like to think about it is, like I said, people is our business, and people is our mission. For that sake, right there, everybody else's profession in the Air Force, their job is to keep the airmen flying, the planes flying, wrenches turning, and just keep the planes in the air. Our job as a people person is to keep those airmen in the air so that they can do their job effectively, so that they don't have any issues for whatever might come about. I'm a civilian firefighter, and I quickly learned that helping people is what I love to do. To me, being a first sergeant, this is the perfect spot for me to not only help airmen, but to help further my ambitions to be a better leader, and I can take that back to the firehouse, and it just kind of encompasses everything. So like you said, it gives me goosebumps, and I love doing this every day.
So I agree with what you said, Evan. I think being a first sergeant it's a lifestyle. We don't have normal banker's hours. I mean, you listen to our creed and history, but speaking for me as a shirt, love this lifestyle. I've never been part of a more helpful, caring, responsive group of people or individuals that want to do so much for our airmen, meaning big A, all of our airmen that are enlisted and officers. I mean, almost to a fault. I know my family's fussed at me a few times being on my phone or computer and maybe doing too much in their eyes. But when I think about it, I don't mind the service I'm providing to someone that needs it. We see people on their best and worst days. And if I get to be part of either one of those, it's the privilege and honor is actually mine.
Absolutely.
I mean, our listeners couldn't see it, but when he was reading, or when you were reading the First Sergeant Creed, I was standing at attention. I just can't help it.
Yes.
I love my job so much. I tell people that the day I got off the bus when I joined the military, I looked over and I saw a building, and painted on the side of the building it said "Mission First, People Always," and that just stuck with me 30 whatever years ago. And mission first, plus the core values on top of that, integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. I mean, It just all wraps up into those simple messages.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
We just live by that.
So, I mean, we say all that, right? But we still have to have boundaries, too. My family's fussed at me before. We've had similar conversations. Maybe you'll never get to witness those because we, at a fault, want to take care of everyone. But we have boundaries, remain neutral, advise our leadership, but everyone is our business, right? And so let's talk about a little bit, what is a first sergeant and what is it not?
The first sergeant is a principal advisor to the commander on the enlisted force. Whatever issue may exist, they need to know about it. Commander's job is to command, and they do that based on their strategic vision, their initiatives, and the information that they have at the time. Ability to keep them informed on these matters helps greatly, ensuring that he can put forth, or that they can put forth the best possible decisions.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Like we always say, we keep our finger on the pulse for the commander, help them to carry out their intentions and their visions.
Right. I feel like as a council as a whole, we take information, confidentiality very serious. It's a need-to-know basis.
Complete transparency. I'm not the expert on everything, and a lot of times I have to seek the counsel of several SMEs or subject matter experts throughout the wing, whatever's appropriate at the time, or bring it before my fellow diamonds who may have faced a similar situation before. That's necessary for me to give the best quality answer, the best quality feedback to the airman or to the commander.
Absolutely. Talking about what we're not as well, along those same lines, is, we're not the hammer of justice.
Right.
We jokingly say all the time, like, we're the first sergeant, but we're not the only sergeant. Many times people come to us with wanting something done, take action on this. We're the first sergeant, not the only sergeant. Other people can handle business as NCOs.
Right.
We don't have to handle everything.
I think that's an important standard that we live and operate by when we keep ourselves in check with our history, our creed, the intent of our leadership and vision of the Air Force. We have that Air Force standard, period, and dot, and that's the standard we want to uphold and maintain.
Yeah.
Yes.
It can be kind of easy to do, right? Hey, the first sergeant's in charge of morale. Let's let them plan the family day or whatever. And we're happy to help. We're happy to advise.
Absolutely.
But shouldering the load of significant additional duties or taking on very large projects like that on a permanent basis takes us away from our primary mission.
Exactly.
Of being a sound advisor to the commander and being available for our airmen.
I agree. As a shirt, we operate on a unique team of leadership called the triad. And I feel like currently the triad's a buzzword, but I think we're trying to get the message out there of what the triad actually is on a strategic level. And Chief Hoop talked about it in the third podcast in the triad, but he talked about it from the chief position. And the chief's panel will talk about it from their position. So as a shirt, let's talk about it from our position.
Well, the first sergeant brings a unique and outside perspective to the triad. We don't serve in the squadron that we came from, and that's by design. It's so that we can offer, in my instance, the perspective of a maintainer in a non-maintenance squadron. And the other thing is that our focus is the people. No matter how much I may agree or disagree with whatever idea is being floated or whatever conversation is being discussed, I have to kind of put that out of my mind and think about how it's going to affect the people. And from that perspective, give the best advice that I can craft.
Right.
I would totally agree. I believe that we're the commander's right hand. Understanding the triad, you've got to understand that the chief is more mission focused, and we kind of fall under more of the people, like Sergeant Coughlin said.
I agree. It's a unique balance to make sure you don't miss out on a perspective that you need as a commander to make the most informed decision.
I kind of like to think of myself kind of as the commanders and chiefs blind spots too. Like you said, they hit on a very strategic note in that we focus more on the people, and not that we can't play a role in the strategic value of the mission. But like you said, we have to be there for the people, and our fingers, our eyes and ears, we're on the pulse of the squadron more than anything else, for
Absolutely.
sure.
It's such a cool legacy that's been before us, and that is actually going to be after us, and we get to be in that little part of it the foundation that's been set and what we can continue to uphold, and then make sure we are mentoring and guiding for future shirts to come in, because we are that standard for them. Part of this interview, I got to reach out to Airmen on base. They got to ask the questions that they wanted us to answer. Hey, shirt, you got a minute? How
Always.
does that sound? Is that so familiar?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you never know what's going to come through your door on a phone, a text, or what you see on social media. So the biggest question I received actually from a few different people is, for a drill status guardsman, 1 week in a month, essentially 2 weeks a year, what is the average tempo you would say is your drill weekend and your outside drill weekend? What challenges do you face as a guardsman being in such a pivotal role?
I'll give the
We
legal
must
answer.
run around ragged or something, and that's why I literally got asked this question like 3 or 4 times. So, JC, give it to us.
I'll give the legal answer. It depends. Right.
Good job. Yeah.
I pretty regularly work in between drills as needed to stay in tune with command.
Sure.
In order to be relevant, I've got to know what's going on, and that takes calling into staff meetings and having regular sync up conversations with folks. And personally, I'm not local to the base. My response to a situation, where an immediate physical response would be needed, I'd call on the council for assistance, and that's what we're here for. And tempo-wise, I don't necessarily like to read regs in my off time, but you're never going to find a chance to do it during the drill weekend. So as I was not more than a couple of weeks ago sitting on the couch thumbing through 650-something pages of the new 2903 update.
Ouch.
Cheyenne comes over. She's like, "What are you doing?" I was like,
Reading the
"Oh,"
Bible.
and I was like, "Oh, a neck
Stuff.
tattoo can be no more than 1 inch in diameter and a vertical line drawn from the earlobe down to the collar." And she's like, "Why are you doing that?" I've got to be up to date on all of this information, so that I can provide feedback for our local supplement, and understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think such a pivotal role being a weekender in the tempo is the volume, the amount of people you have, but not necessarily personally for me, but what the member has going on. Each situation for them is just a little different and unique, and none of them are the same. And so time is a tempo for me.
Right.
Like, time can be the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, I would speak in averages. I probably average a few hours a week doing first sergeant stuff, and then for the year, 6 weeks easy. I take off from my civilian job to do military time as a first sergeant.
Right.
Easy.
And we don't say that as like it's too much, it's overwhelming, it's not enough. It has its ebbs and flows, but
Totally.
again, it's a lifestyle, and we're compensated in other ways that we are able to take care of ourselves, and how our team takes care of each of us, I think, is unique as well. They realize that and see that.
DSG first sergeant, I like talking averages. I spend a few hours a week on first sergeant research, taking calls, emails, and you've really got to stay in touch with your triad and anyone really that needs you from your units, and that's just part of the job. And that going in, we're pretty clear about candidates that apply for first sergeant duty. It's not canned into a 1 weekend a month situation like maybe they were used to in the regular AFSC that they came from.
Yeah.
And then when you're on the run on duty, you get the, "Hey, sure, got a minute." Sometimes you got to tell them, like, "Hey, I need you to walk with me
Yeah.
because I'm on the move," and and you don't want to ever leave them hanging. But hey, you're gonna have to walk with me. Tell me what's your problem. How can I help you?
I agree. What do you think one piece of advice is you wish you would have known as a young airman that you could have now, and you would have had it sooner if someone would have given you that piece of advice? I know for me personally, get and be ready for more. And it's almost a mindset, intentionally schedule time for yourself, but then get and be ready for more, because you get stretched pretty thin in general. And then you add people onto your plate, and it's a good problem to have. You just have to remember how to help them carry the load. So you're not carrying it alone, you're helping them.
I would tell young airmen, as I've been told, and I try to repeat it as much as I can, is don't be the reason why you don't advance. If there's something that's you're in control of, like your education, and getting your skill training done. Stay on top of it, get it done as soon as you can, because that's something you have control of. And so that's what I tell all young airmen. That's what I would tell myself again,
Yeah.
Exactly.
the younger me.
Opportunity happens,
Right, you need to be ready.
and you need to be ready.
What's an important skill you need to have to build relationships with people and being a key leader?
I believe that the most important skill you can have is to just be a good listener to the airmen. There's several other skills that you can have out there, don't get me wrong, but I think me personally, it's just being a good listener. It's so crucial for our jobs, and that, you know, we have to be the bridge between our commanders and our airmen. So there's nothing wrong with the administration work, but just to be a good listener. This isn't the job that you have to be sitting at a desk all day. Again, emails are very important. You got to check them. Our job is people, and we just got to get out there and we got to talk to them.
Right.
So you can't talk to them behind. You can't talk to them really behind a desk. You got to get out there. You got to, if they're out there loading bombs on the bomb rack underneath an A-10, that's where you got to be out there with them.
Right.
You got to be visible to them. You got to be accessible to them.
It's the important skills, being able to build relationships with people and being able to engage with anyone. Because as a leader or as a first sergeant, you're going to have to be able to talk to a general or an E1 and anything in between. Open-mindedness and empathy, because everyone carries biases, and you need to try to set things aside as best you can when you're engaging with people, because you don't know what kind of day they had. You don't know what's going on in their life and what they might be dealing with.
You don't know what's in their book bag, what they're carrying around.
You don't know.
You're right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, we touch a lot of people, and in turn, they affect us as well. But who's our boss? Who does our evaluations? Where do we get our ratings from, right? So who's our boss?
Yeah, we report directly to the commander of which we're assigned.
Right. They do our evaluations.
And
they
then the
do.
commander above that commander.
Right. So in your opinion, what is unique about the first sergeant position?
Oh wow! Whatever airman asked that question, that's a
You're
that's
welcome.
a great question. Honestly, there's a lot about it, but if I could pick just one, I would say we kind of hit on a little bit. It's you really don't know what the day has in store for you. No one day is exactly the same as the other one. Some days we walk in with a full schedule already, with promotions, awards, and ceremonies. Unfortunately, maybe even a disciplinary action that we got to sit on with the commander. Again, when that phone rings that we had earlier, you honestly, you have no idea what's on the other side of that line and what's about to be thrown in your position. Sometimes it might be kind of like a rodeo, and you're hanging on to that bull, and you're just along for the ride.
Right.
But then other times it can be a little slower, and you got more time to talk to people. But that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah, I'll never forget in my interview to become a first sergeant, once the nerves died down a little bit and I could actually answer the questions, one of the questions was, you just get a climate survey back doing your DEOC survey, an airman stops you in the hallway and is just a little off. What do you do? And there's no wrong answer, but there's a best answer. And we have a little rectangle square of knowledge in our pocket, and I can over communicate with my team and let them know I'm going to be late. Give me the Cliff Notes version. I'm going to touch base with this person and see what's going on. And that's what I said to my interview. I don't know if that's what got me the job. I think no one else interviewed or something, but
It's funny you say that, because a couple of days ago I just had that situation with an airman. Had a staff meeting getting ready for this exercise, and I had an airman in my office. And did I need to go to that staff meeting? Absolutely. But I'm pretty sure that my commander could completely understand afterwards, hey, I was talking with one of our airmen and they had an issue, and they completely understood.
you just give them a heads up,
Exactly.
right? I'm going to be late.
Yep.
What difficulties are being experienced by our airmen currently, and how can supervisors support shirts and the airmen in resolving these issues? I think in maintenance currently it's conversion, but it's no secret we're missing some birds on the ramp. We're missing some work to do, even though there's still work to do, and we're getting ready and we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's and following up with everybody to get our equipment in. There is a big change going on, and it's going to keep stretching us a little thinner each time.
Yeah, and I also see that we need to keep all the airmen engaged during the conversion when there is downtime, and also that's a time to keep them engaged in their careers, keep them excited.
How do we support supervisors in that?
Everything that you thought you didn't have time to do before, Now you've got the time.
You've
Now's
got
the time
time.
to do
Let's
it.
do it. Let's
Right.
do PME.
Remember when you all talked about that?
Yeah.
Now's the time to engage with that.
I agree.
Yeah, take that extra time and get to know your airmen. There's a lot of new faces around here. It's happening all the time, and it can be hard to keep up, especially if you're a supervisor in office, trying to keep the shop running. It's hard to find time to go out and form a relationship with every single airman. But when you do have the time, you have to make the time for them, because if you don't have the time for that, they're not going to have the time for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's right.
What's the most impactful thing shirts can do to help with unit morale and retention? I know for me, I got new boots so I could walk around. I love a good cliche. So follow up Friday, that's my jam. If you see me pull out my phone, I'm usually putting someone in my reminders to follow up every Friday. And it's so funny. You can literally type in Friday and boom, there's the date. I like to beat them at a card game, meet them where they're at, do what's important to them, learn about them. The first thing I was so excited about was to get a line badge so I could actually be on the flight line legal. I used to get so nervous, and now the first thing I did, give me the training, let's do this.
Talking about being impactful, I think one of the biggest things a shirt can do is addressing issues swiftly. Because when airmen see you addressing things swiftly, that legitimizes you as a first sergeant, and it just you get that respect when they see that you care.
They may not like it, but they do realize that you care at that point.
Exactly.
How do first sergeants mentor others within their units? Are there specific mentorship things you do intentionally within your own units?
The first thing that comes to my mind is what I like to call career recovery. I like to help people if they've been through a bad patch in their career or in a dark place, to help them pick up the pieces and recover their careers, and also people keeping them on track with their careers as well. I like to help people do that, and it's really rewarding to see the great outcomes whenever you get to get involved with people.
A lot of times, folks just assume that it's the end. They don't know of the other options that they have. They're not aware of avenues for support or assistance, and I think that's where we come through as like a multi-tool with a connection to all of our supporting agencies that we have on base, and diversity of thought that we have within the council itself. We put all that diamond power
That's right.
on something. We can usually get a pretty good outcome out of it.
What's the biggest thing you tell people that maybe no one listens to? Someone says, I didn't know, I didn't hear that. What do we say the most that maybe someone's not hearing?
Being an older person, I see the value in investing early, and I try to tell people to put more money away for retirement, and then also just to be smarter along the way with your money. And I really was selling that when I was on my last deployment. I had a lot of active duty folks, and I was telling them, like, hey, you need to make sure you're doing tax free, Roth and everything, and just take advantage of this. And I was it was unfortunate that many of the people I talked to had no idea. I try to always encourage being better financially.
My thing, it's kind of weird. It's purposeful adversity, and using that as a tool to facilitate your resilience in all of the pillars, right? Working out harder than you would ever need to. To meet the standard, you need to train to exceed the standard. Is going to 100% ensure, lock down, no problem, no sweat, zero issue with that. And the same thing with the other pillars of resilience. You kind of covered the financial, right? There's the spiritual one. A lot of folks practice certain rituals of fasting and things like that to help improve their spiritual resiliency. And that is more important in life than you could ever imagine. Walk through issues seemingly unscathed.
Right. So with everything people tell you, how do you keep it confidential? How do you store information so no one learns people's most personal details? I know for me, things are encrypted or secure to a point where sometimes it takes me a second to decipher the information. Like I've secured it from myself. So that's just something I do on a personal note. I'm not going to tell you how, because then you'd know the decoder. But what do you guys do differently?
I mean, I can't remember everything.
Right.
And I always have my notebook with me. So I do take notes. I take only the necessary information to help jog my memory over what the specific stuff is, and I don't very often don't write all of the details down.
Exactly.
But that notebook is always by my side. It's got my name on it.
Yep.
And we operate here in a culture of professional airmen, integrity first. And if somebody finds that with my name and the big old First Sergeant diamond right on the front of it, they should give it back to me and not worry about reading it.
Yep.
Right. I agree.
I'm the same way. Old school. Anything I do write on paper, it's basically in code. I only write enough to jog my memory, like Sergeant Coughlin said, and only enough details, and I never write names down.
As a new shirt, what do you do for your flow?
I think I grew up watching a lot of the older folks around here. It seems like everybody, like you said, carries around a notebook, and it just kind of came off on me too. I do write reminders in my phone, and that kind of helps as well too. My phone's a little more encrypted as opposed to a notebook, which I will say I have left my notebook around, but I don't write names and things like. But as opposed to that, I always try to make sure that, like I say, our office doors are always open if someone wants to talk, but I have to make sure that if someone does come in, make sure if you have anything on your desk or emails open, things like that, I just got to make sure I put that aside, black out the screen as quick as I can so someone can't come in and look at that type of information.
And if anybody spends any time around us as first sergeants, we like speak in code. It's like, hey, the thing, you there? Yeah, I'm on there. I'm on the thing. Yeah, you ready? Yeah, we're ready for that thing.
And it could have been a retirement party.
It could be
right?
anything.
We're just so used to
We're
code.
so used to speaking in code that
Right.
That's just the way we talk to each other a lot of times, and people they're like, what are they talking about?
You got to be part of the diamond
You
crew.
got to be part. You got to know the handshake and everything.
That's right. So what does mandatory reporter mean? So we went into a little bit of people, how airmen around the base are curious on how we operate as a team. So what does it mean when we say mandatory reporter? We do trainings once a year, but specifically to diamonds, what does it mean to be a mandatory reporter?
I mean, as a member of command, we're obligated by law to report illegal activity and admission of crimes and things like that. I actually carry around a rights advisement card so that I've got that on tap, and depending on where the conversation may be going with an individual, you've got to sometimes just be like, what? Hold on a second.
I got one in my truck in the visor just in case. Yep.
Well, and that point is to protect them too. They are lawfully allowed and constitutionally required that we are trained to know their rights to empower them.
Exactly.
So it's our job, no different than a police officer, to reveal ourselves. We have to reveal that information to them.
And with that said, we remain approachable. If we stop somebody, like, hey, just pause for a second. Theoretically, if this was a type of topic, that's where we can possibly stop them there and direct them towards a helping agency,
right?
As well. So we always want to remain approachable.
So in remaining approachable, how do first sergeants remain neutral?
We all come from very diverse backgrounds, and we all have our different upbringings. So staying neutral can be difficult, but the fact is we have to just remain neutral as first sergeants, because we can't be too quick to jump to a conclusion without having all the facts.
Right.
Not that we have to make the disciplinary action if it is discipline in general. It's part of our jobs, and to be able to advise our commanders to the best of their abilities, we have to make sure that we give them we give them all the information that we can, and then we can easily advise them in the best course of action.
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We all have biases, conscious and unconscious, and some of those we can't just turn off. Be aware of them, and we have to attempt to mitigate them consciously in order to make a sound decision. And you're exactly right. You can have somebody in your office that's very highly emotionally charged, that is telling you things that make you mad, or that make you want to go, what the heck is going on down there in that shop or whatever. At the same time, to maintain your cool, and then you have to work to address the other part of the situation so you can see in totality what's going on.
And we operate as a team too, right? As needed. It's not uncommon for us to share cases due to our own very aware, conscious bias. And I think that's just something unique about this team. First sergeants have lost their diamond by violating confidentiality.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's important.
One of us, if we can't remain neutral on whatever case might be happening, we just pick up the phone and we can instantly tap another diamond like, hey, I got the situation. I can't remain neutral on this. Can one of you guys kind of step in for me? And I think everybody here on this panel, as well as the Assured Council, is more than qualified and more than capable enough to kind of stepping in and taking that role for us.
And we talk about it in advance. It's not a blind side of ours that we're all people too. And I really like that. So how do airmen know if they should take a concern to their supervisor or first sergeant?
For that is use your chain of command. But, there might be some instances in some special cases where, hey, if you have an issue with one of your supervisors and you don't feel comfortable talking to your supervisor, no matter what that may be, you can always come to us. And I also think that, hey, if you can settle it best in house, best in the shop, without us, that's fine. Not that we don't want to help, but hey, you always want to try and solve things at the lowest level as quick as you can and as effectively as you can too, as well.
How do you help assist commander in your organization to meet organizational goals? I know for me personally, we will have candid conversations within the triad. We'll get together, we'll talk about the hard stuff, we'll have those hard conversations, and then we'll follow up.
I think that as the commander's right hand, as I spoke about before, you've got the intent and vision that you're supporting, and knowing that is what you have to stay focused on as your guidelines.
Your commander's intent is really a guiding principle. From his strategic view, it's where they believe that we need to be at. By ensuring that those goals and that vision, that intent is clearly communicated among all of the ranks so that they can have a firm understanding and grasp of what that may mean.
Which gives us that deployable force for the commander.
Yep.
Right. How do you think that this position has improved you as an individual? We come in, well, first we get scrutinized through an interview, and that's fun, by the way, but it's worth it. We go through the interview process, we go to First Sergeant Academy, and we leave the academy with the empowerment to survive the first year. We come back to our team, and then the work begins. And for guardsmen, us doing the weekend job, we might sit in the seat in that first sergeant billet for a few months or 6 before we actually go to the academy. So we've got a little time under our belt.
Well, I just got back from school not too long ago. So I think with this position, it gave me a new profound meaning of a little bit of confidence. I grew up from very humble origins. I did play sports and I did a little bit of theater growing up. But outside of that, I was relatively pretty shy and I didn't like to really speak up, especially when I saw things out of place. Being in the first sergeant school, you quickly learn that you're going to be taken out of your comfort zone very, very quickly and very, very often. Go into about any situation with the confidence, knowing that I might not have all the answers, but that's the beauty of this council and this panel. I'm there to support that person, but at the same time, it's, hey, I might not have all the answers. I'm here listening to you. But the fact is, I know with all the resources that we have with this council and this panel that, hey, I can go tap this person or tap this resource, gather that information, and be able to confidently report back to that person in a timely manner. Hey, this is what I got for you.
Working to overcome my introversion. I'm a very quiet person. Didn't historically people very well. Overcome that to the point where I can engage just about anybody. Like Sergeant Jennings said, sitting in the middle of a staff meeting, just trying to take notes and understand what's happening, what's gonna come on during the next RSD or something. And then the commander's like, "Sure, what you got?"
And seeing the big picture, like when you were growing up in your AFSCs, so to speak, you were very focused on whatever your job was in your shop. But when you come up to the triad level, you're looking at the big picture more. And I think that's something that you don't get that until you're in a position. And then as a first sergeant, just the experiences that you gain helping people, it just makes you just more knowledgeable as a person.
I ended up in one of the personnel regs recently, and so deep, and there was math in there, and all these formulas about how they come up with manpower authorizations and how many people are supposed to do this and what it takes to do that, and the amount of information that was there. For me, to be able to experience the breadth things that I never would have seen before in any other AFSC other than that particular one, it was a real eye-opener.
I think there's a couple unique things that we can translate from our first sergeant experience into our civilian jobs.
Human resources right off the bat. I've actually been keeping track on some of our Facebook first sergeant pages, and there's quite a few first sergeants that retire from the Air Force and they go into HR.
I think on the flip side of that is just the leadership position that we're in. With just that experience and just kind of the military profession of arms, that experience can easily cross over to the civilian sector and gives us the kind of capability to do whatever we need to do.
So how can others pave the road for themselves to become a first sergeant?
Get your stuff done. 100% ready with your PME, staying on top of all of the things that you can control in life. To hold the position of a first sergeant is more than just a rank requirement or passing a test or something like that. We have to be financially stable. We have to have a stable family life. Really expect us up to snuff. We could have our diamond removed if we fail more than one PT test.
Right.
Tell somebody if you want to be a first sergeant, you got to maintain the highest standards and seek out that education. Just to echo what Sergeant Coughlin said, that would be the first thing I would say to someone. That's they have control of that.
I kind of equate it as to, I think it's funny, we're not all the same. We all shirt how we shirt, and I love that uniqueness in all of us, because together, when we come together as a team, we make up that whole diamond perspective. What I can offer is different than what the three of you offer, but together we can give them each a point to run with, and I really like that. I think in paving the road for yourself, find people like that in your proximity area. Find people that are going to challenge you, level up to their area and their expertise.
Stronger together, and that works everywhere in our military career. Anywhere in your life, actually. Stronger together.
So how and why would someone want to become a first sergeant? I mean, I can speak for me personally. I wanted to become a first sergeant because I wanted to make a bigger impact. I had a first sergeant. My very first sergeant actually passed away on a motorcycle accident, and I'll never forget the words of wisdom he left with me in just our little med group in Georgia, and that just stood out to me. His dress and appearance, his mannerisms, his empathy versus sympathy, depending on what you were doing, is what you got. And I just really appreciated that candor within him as an individual. And the legacy he left after his death was the most impactful one I've had to date still. And that is what I wanted to carry on.
To be completely honest with all of you here, I wasn't even sure what a first sergeant was when I even first heard of the position. My first encounter with the first sergeant, not that it was bad, I honestly thought it was somebody that sits next to the commander or stands next to the commander and they read off awards. That's kind of it, and they give briefings. That's honestly what I thought. They come around the building and do accountability over drill weekends, and that was my only impression of a first sergeant. It wasn't until somebody saw something in me, the way that I was approaching people, how I was always in a positive attitude, and then somebody brought me to the side and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a first sergeant?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't want to read in front of people. Absolutely not." And then they later on then said, "Hey, that's not all that we do. We do, we help people through difficult issues. We hand out promotions and ceremonies, which you do get to see, but it's a whole different career." And now here I am on a podcast right now talking to, but that's just kind of my 2 cents on why I became a first sergeant.
I'd say why would someone want to become a first sergeant? To be an agent of change for the betterment of airmen is just, I would put that out there.
Agent of change. I like that.
Agent of change for the betterment of airmen. I mean, to me, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Holding the line when it comes to standards. It's something that is important enough that Chief Bass sent a letter out just a few weeks ago regarding a common concern of the erosion of standards. It's a hard thing to maintain, as we've all found out through the different things that we've dealt with over the years. But it's something that we have to sometimes selectively engage on to ensure that we're working to fulfill the mission statement of the First Sergeant Council to build and maintain a mission-ready force.
Do you feel pressure in your role, or do you feel it's laid back?
I would say you definitely do feel the pressure. We have the commander's ear, and we need to be the pulse of the squadron. Our words carry weight. Words mean things. We have to remain cool, calm, and collected at all times, and we have to be that at our best and on our worst days.
Right.
A diamond is formed under intense pressure and heat. It's what it takes to make one.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd call that stressful.
But at the same time, diamond cutting tools are the things you use to cut things that you can't normally cut, right? So they're capable of making that kind of a mark. They're also a very beautiful, lustrous stone, shiny and beautiful, and the thing that is very wanted in the world. It's a precious stone.
So with all the pressure, our tempo, people being people, and us being part of that people concept, what's the most challenging part of our job?
I thought about that, and the first thing I thought about was like striving to be inspirational with a limited amount of time. It's like I never have enough time to reach all the people that I'm striving to be inspirational to.
Yeah.
And that's my challenge.
Put
all
a
the
high
time.
standard on yourself.
It's
Yeah.
A drill weekend goes by way too fast. I never get everything done that I thought I was going to get done, but I have to console myself and manage my own expectations in helping me
Cope.
to realize that the impact that I made today was sufficient.
So how do we cope in getting overwhelmed, getting discouraged, not getting to everything on our list when it comes to getting the job done how we want to get it done? Because we are that standard we're maintaining. How do we cope with that? That's a tall order.
Remember who you're here for and press on.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself.
I know for me, I work out. I lean on you guys. I actually have my own first sergeant. I'm not going to divulge that to you guys, but most of the time, usually on a Sunday of drill weekend, I'm calling JC as well just to do a quick gut check. My husband, he gets the classified version of stuff, but for me, it's working out and talking to someone.
Same. Exercising all of my pillars of resilience. Exercise, quiet time helps calm my mind and helps me cope with things. Speaking with my spouse, talking through unique situations, like Sergeant Kaiser said, in a classified setting.
Right.
Balancing and managing my time. I got to go on a vacation every once in a while. I got to disconnect every once in a while. I communicate with my command team. I inform my additional duty first sergeant that they have the helm. I inform the members of the council, and we communicate, collaborate, divide, and ensure that there's coverage. There's diamond top cover for every airman at all times.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think the expectations of being a shirt now that you're in the seat has met reality, or do you think it's changed? You know those memes and GIFs, reality versus expectations versus reality?
What my mom thinks I do, what my friends think I do,
Yes,
what I actually
yes.
do. The academy was such an intense bluing experience, right? Forging the diamond. That coming back to an Air National Guard base where you're not around so many people all of the time, all under the umbrella of military justice and things like that, right? It is a little bit different, and I would say that the tempo is a little bit less than what I initially thought it would be. I also failed to take into consideration during the academy that I have to maintain my civilian job and my family life and all of those stresses as well. And maintaining a civilian job is not something that is encountered at the academy regularly.
Mm-hmm.
My experiences that I brought to the table, being from the Army and what a first sergeant was more old school in the way we were trained coming out of the academy. is that we want, we've had a major goal to change the culture and be more approachable to deal with and take care of people. That was the culture change, and that was different than what I expected coming in.
That's awesome. You get to be part of that culture change. What's the standard that our current First Sergeant Corps has at the 122nd? I like this question a lot because it made me think when I got this in, I instantly put down my phone and I was like, oh, what's my standard? Well, I think first and foremost, faith, family, freedom. And when I keep them in that order of consistency, I don't miss something.
Yeah, I agree. Very similar. Maintaining my personal standards is crucial to my performance here. If I'm lacking in anything personally, it affects my performance. So I have to work to maintain those standards, or work on alternative strategies in order to maintain my performance, so that the airmen continue to get the cover that they deserve, even when I'm not having the absolute best day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we could actually just read the creed again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that just grabs it all. It's like, we're diamond sharp, solid gold. And
You're standing at attention again, Brian.
Let me sit down.
One sharp rock.
That's
That's
right.
right, one sharp rock.
The mission statement of the council, right? To build and maintain a mission-ready force.
Right.
That's our driving principle in the things that we do as a council, and that's why we're here.
So what roles and responsibilities of a first sergeant that maybe unit members are not aware of? We seem to be in front or really behind the scenes, right?
Well, like Brian said earlier, we still have that reputation of being the hammer a little bit, right?
Right.
We can be, if the commander chooses to use us as the hammer. A lot of what we don't see or a lot of the things that you don't see that I didn't really think about are the big Air Force things. We're a member of the command team. We're operational. We're strategic leaders. I never once thought before about reading the National Defense Strategy. I mean, I heard about it when I became a senior NCO, and I may have glazed over it a time or two, but I've actually read the thing. I've had the opportunity to work with folks at the MAGCOM level, to meet Diamond 1. We all had the opportunity to meet Chief Dent, our Air National Guard functional manager, and talk with him about issues that are specific to Air National Guard First Sergeants, specific to Indiana, and receive his feedback and give him visibility to that stuff, connect us in ways that make sense.
And then I can think about being overseas in my last deployment as a first sergeant and engaging with multinational stakeholder meetings once a month. It's like, never thought I'd be in that position. And it's like, if everybody could see me now, here I am. Just stuff like that. Back home, a lot of people don't realize that we are actually monitoring all programs in the unit, and that's something that was kind of behind the scenes. We're there to kind of, as there again, a mentoring role, making sure programs are being carried out.
Reviewing awards and decorations every once in a while.
Yep.
To see how long it's been since folks have had recognition, raising that to the supervisors so that they have SA on it and can make their own decisions.
What do you think are some of the hardest times as a first sergeant, working with airmen on their best and worst days, and even the in-between, because that's just as important? Old saying, a death by 1,000 cuts, when everything just hits at once.
We are all people. We're all airmen, and unfortunately, some people do make mistakes, and you always want to be there to support that airman. I mean, again, they're an airman first. We want to be there to support that member, but sometimes we always can't save that person, unfortunately. And I know me personally, I've gone through that already as a first sergeant, and it's unfortunate at times because that person is a good person, and you truly want the best for that person. You do have to hold that person accountable, and people do make mistakes, and you just kind of have to get them through that time, whatever that outcome might be. But you want to be there for that person. You want to be there for that airman.
Yeah. We talked about that at the symposium. Our last one's like being there for someone's fall from grace, and being there to help catch them.
I know I've had a few fall from graces on my own mantle, so.
I remember elementary school and things like that, where I would often see on my report card not working to potential.
Oh no!
And it took me forever.
No.
Like, what does that even mean?
If they
You know,
could
I
see you now.
didn't even understand that.
I got check
And-
minuses, and that hurts. Still hurts to this day.
It still hurts.
Now I have an understanding of that. When I see someone, when I'm talking to someone or helping somebody through a problem or an issue or a career hiccup, and that goes through my mind, is that this person is capable of so much more. They don't see it, they don't realize it, they don't have the confidence, they don't have the know-how or know the right person to talk to, or even think that it's an option to do. Sometimes a career field change is an accelerator. Taking into consideration the totality of the situation, it's incredible what the outcome can be.
So I think that's in general what we're hoping this First Sergeant panel is that call to conversation. What does that look like? How are we here to support you? What we do behind the scenes, and why we continue to do this, not only for you, for each other, as a team, as a whole. Those conversations, the good and the bad. What are some of the things that we do on base to keep that conversation going? I know recently it's been brought up, what does working out with Airmen look like? And we've thrown around a few things. There's nothing solidified yet, and it might be tailored to each unit and group and squadron, but it's out there. We love recognizing our airmen. I think that's one of the most favorite things that we do. And so that's the quarterly diamond sharp coins and making a big deal about it, all the shirts showing up. What are some other things that you guys can think of that we want to continue to have the conversation and elevate the 122nd?
Yeah, all of those topics that you just mentioned were born out of the First Sergeant's Council. The council is unique in that membership and attendance is mandatory. It affords us an opportunity to all get together to talk about the issues that are unique to us, that are unique to our people, and come up with creative legal strategies to be able to do and execute against some of those items, taking into account the commander's intent.
So team, you guys have done great. Thank you so much for doing this, for the airmen that had the questions, and also maybe someone in the community hearing this and wanting to be part of the team. So in closing, one thing, what would you tell yourself as you started down the path of becoming a first sergeant? JC, I'll just kick it over to you.
Well, Black Snakes, I'm going to take this opportunity to shirt on a little bit all of you right now. We're here to fly, we're here to fight, and we're here to win. That's what we do. That's the Black Snake standard, and that's exactly what's going to happen. If you're listening to this, you're not currently a member, and you want to find out what being a member of this family is all about, come on out.
I mean, I don't know if I can top that. Can y'all top that?
Yeah. I'd say
right.
that's a mic drop moment right
Mic
there.
check.
Mic drop
Guys.
there. Wow.
I don't think I
Thank
can
you.
drop
Okay.
this. It's expensive.
So thank you so much for listening in. Share the show. We want this to be the fastest growing military podcast out there, and it's because of people like you. Black Snakes, out.